Honey, don't let us find out that Moses is being inducted into the Huntsville Pimp Squad, okay? So he's getting sage wisdom and advice from Huntsville's finest pimps. Let's get into it.
Welcome to my channel, baby. Sip sensibility. Welcome to my channel, baby. Sip sensibility.
Hey, this is Sensibility Speaks. Thanks for stopping by, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Well, looky here. Well. And so I'm looking at the scene of Love and Marriage Huntsville, and I'm looking at Marcel and Maurice as they kind of have an intervention or a conversation, shall I say, with Moses, right? So a broken clock can be right twice, okay? And so let's start with Maurice. So Maurice is imparting some words of wisdom to Moses, basically telling him, look, you need to define a timeline. You need to make it clear. You need to protect your wife, because if you don't make it crystal clear, the court of public opinion will decide, hey, you and Sonny got together too quick. The lines were crossed. Where's the line of demarcation? Did you end one relationship before the other one started, right? I'm going to do a whole nother video when him getting up with Miss Destiny. So I don't want to conflate the two. So just focusing on what Maurice said, he said that it had been a whole year that he had moved from his marital home and had left the state or whatever before he even met Kimmy even. He had filed for divorce, I think, a year before he met Kimmy. And so in the confessional, he says, you have to be careful, protect your wife. Don't let any untruths or don't let any narratives essentially go out there that can grow legs, okay? I find this damn rich. I'm like, honey, y'all been filming, 3, 4, 5 years, Love and Marriage Huntsville, and then people have been on Kimmy's ass since the beginning, saying that she was a side chick to Kiowa, right? So I'm like, now he's being definitive and clearly talking about the timeline, saying in so many words that Kimmy wasn't a side chick. Why you ain't clarify that shit from the beginning? I can't even remember there was a scene in the pool when Marcel called her a side chick, and Marcel and everybody he laughing. This was, I don't know, one of those trips, Vegas, where I think it was Vegas. It was a while back. But he even had Kiowa and Kimmy get together so they can discuss Maurice Jr., Monster, whatever. But Kiowa alluded to the fact, and I think she may have done a live with one of the Scott brothers talking about how Kimmy was a side chick. And that's right. Kimmy had even asked Kiowa to kind of clear up the timeline. And Kiowa was like, I ain't clearing up ish. I know that's right. That's Maurice's job to do. But again, I believe he let that thing linger on for a damn storyline. I'm just saying. Anyway, so I'm wondering, did Maurice double dip, spin the block or whatever like that? That's why he never wanted to really clarify the timeline, because even though he may have filed, they were still separated, or maybe legally separated. That ain't to say he ain't go back and dip into Kiowa's lady pond, okay? Because you know how if people separate, they can spin a block, they can go back and forth until they decide, or one or both decide that this is over. So you never protected Kimmy before, in my opinion, but you're kind of protecting her now by proxy by giving Moses clear-cut advice. Honey, your timeline that you're articulating now, how you got with Kimmy or whatever in the time that elapsed, is with surgical precision. You're very articulate and you didn't mince words. You could have been doing that the whole damn time, but it's like you left her unprotected for people to have conjecture and to speculate. Okay? Were you doing it for a storyline? Were you doing it to F with her emotions, Were you trying to play on her top? Meaning, were you trying to mess with her emotions and be manipulative? I don't know what his reasoning for. I'm just thinking they may have still been having sexual relations. Who knows? I'm just, giving my opinion. All right. This is allegedly in my opinion, child. But he did give Moses good advice. He said, you should get with Destiny and try to get her blessing. If I was Destiny, I wouldn't bless shit. Okay? The hell you gonna bless the next relationship where you were still kind of in muddy waters when we broke up. Child, I wish the hell I would, but I think he's just saying at least give her that respect by meeting with her, having a conversation with her for closure, maybe. Okay. Even though Marcel is like, hell no, what you gonna do that for? He is dead set against it. Also, I want to talk about the interview with Dustin Ross and Marceau. I thought it was very candid and very telling. And so I recorded that part earlier. So you're going to hear my opinion on that. But before we segue into me critiquing some things that were said with that Dustin and Marceau interview, I do feel like Marcel is also trying to impart good advice to Moses as well, because he and Tisha have gone through the ringer, and I think that's at Marcel's fault because he can be a misogynist, and we've seen how he treats Tisha, right? And it's the ever looming and seemingly a fair question of him stepping out and his questionable behavior, right? But saying all that to say, he said that all of those rocks being thrown at their marriage and pebbles, all the rocks, the pebbles, and the jabs, and people speaking negatively or giving their opinion on their marriage, I guess it took its toll, maybe to the point to where they were going to separate. I think they were separated when she moved into that apartment with the girls' child. Maybe they had a trial separation. Maybe it wasn't a legal separation, but they decided to Memphis. That's just my opinion, okay? Honey, quiet as it's kept, for real, for real. I think Marceau is staying with Tisha because they are too legally bound with all those damn businesses that he got in her name, so he can get set aside for those minority woman-owned business or whatever, having her as a majority shareholder for his own selfish gain. But whatever the case may be, he know he just can't walk away. It's too much shit to untie. But that's just allegedly, in my opinion. But anywho, back to Sonny and Moses. But that is true. People talking on Sonny's and Moses' newly formed marital bond, their union, that can take its toll. Or it can go in the other direction to where that can solidify their union to where it's us against the world, right? No matter how controversial us getting together, her being Destiny's former producer and Moses being Destiny's former man or child, whatever. But anyway, I'm going to talk more about that because I got a whole lot to say about that child. But anyway, now when I think about the Scott brothers, they're not the face of morality, child, or the moral majority, but they are imparting some pretty good wisdom or telling Moses some good stuff. So I guess a broken clock can be right twice a day, despite your seemingly kind of questionable character. All right, so now let's segue into the other part with the Dustin interview. Well. Even a broken clock can be right twice a day. So Marcel feels that Martel threatening to put out the revenge P on Melody, he feels that he has stooped to the lowest of lows, and many of us feel that way, okay? Unless you're just a hater, right, of Melody. And he even stated that he lost respect for Martel. Now, he's not wrong, but there's certainly levels to shit, okay? So in other words, Martel will cross any boundary, do anything to exact revenge against people that he feels has wronged him, when in actuality, he's the perpetrator many times, right? So many of us have been saying since the inception of the show that it's quite clear that Martel is dangling a carrot and he has something over the Scott brothers, okay? And he holds their truths and he threatens them and weaponizes them with it. So based upon what he's willing to do to Melody and based on this arrest, and now the world knows what he tried to do to Melody, right? Even the ones who tried to bury their head in the sand and act as if though he's this great dad, they now know. So pretty much Marcel knows if he ever pushes Martel's back against the wall and puts him in a corner, he gonna tell all his ish, right? And so that's why he's speaking freely about how he feels about Martel now, okay? Because we know in the very first episode or second episode, we know that Maurice and Marceau tried to have an intervention with Martel, but he knows that you can't get through that thick skull. And I don't know if production put them up to trying to have that intervention with Martel, just trying to feign a rapport and trying to fool us, the viewers, who knows? But this is now coming from an alleged known or seeming cheater himself, talking about Marceau. And when I say it's levels to shit, so Marceau, as they say, is a respectful cheater. If that's even possible, I don't think it is. But basically, he's not willing to let his side chicks harass Tisha, okay? The way that Martel has let that bedbug, Ariane, harassed the hell out of Melody off and on over the years since the inception of their affair, right? And so whatever he's doing, whoever Marcel went to Africa with, or whatever chicks and hoes he has in different area codes, child, they don't bother Tisha, okay? That way she can try to justify her sham and charade of a marriage. But this ain't about Tisha. But the fact that Marcel was willing to come clean and just kind of lay it on the line and just saying that basically Martell ain't ish, okay? So basically, Marcel was saying that if Martell continues down this path of destruction, his kids are going to lose all respect for them because the way that he's treating their mother, and he said, the way that you're treating the mother of your kids, they're going to lose respect for you. Point blank, period. So, real talk, it makes me think about street code, as they call it. Back in the day, there was a code: don't ever do harm to women or children. If they're criminals, you don't mess with kids and women, right? Child, but we know in today's times, child, that's just off the table. But anyway, but Marcel did hit the nail on the head when he said that Martell will lose their respect. But let's be clear, Martell don't love those kids. He don't give a damn about the four-piece nuggets. He uses them as pawns to fuel his agenda. He attempts to weaponize the kids to try to control Melody, point blank, period, and to torture her and harass her by trying to take the kids from her, all of that. And Marcel even said that Martell has no bottom. And he feels like if someone sinks low in his mind, even though he's the lowest of the damn low, that he's willing to go to hell. And I think he made a comment that he's not willing to bend his back. But if someone goes low, then that's going to disrupt your goddamn equilibrium, so to speak. For someone to go truly low with someone who's vibrating on a very low frequency, that's going to disrupt your peace, okay? And so in order to keep someone jailed or try to imprison someone, then you got to oversee them, which means you lose your freedom trying to contain and control another. Does that make sense? Catch, okay? But in my mind, Martell has always been a follower. I think he's dim-witted as hell. Let's be clear, I believe he's always been a cheater and a philanderer. But however, when he started hanging out with the Scott brothers, he upped the ante by trying to compete with the Scott boys. Talking about Maurice and Marceau. In his sick, twisted mind, in order to win the dick swinging and pissing contest against those guys, he decided he wanted to one-up them fools. I'm just saying, okay? Because in his mind, Martell felt like he was going to show his bravado and prove his manhood by getting a full-blown girlfriend and to say to the Scott brothers, guess what? Yeah, you guys are cheaters or whatever like this. Because remember, he was trying to compete with them because remember, they used to poke fun at him because he was involved in the kids' lives, right? Meaning helping with the kids or whatever, far more involved than they ever were with their kids. Talking about Marcel in particular, right? We know that he's not a hands-on dad. And so I think he tried to rib Martell, poking fun at him by telling him, you're so involved, you're acting like a bitch, so to speak, like a woman, right? When that's not the case. He was just being an involved parent. But since Martell doesn't have any character and he has a weak foundation, okay, and he's not solidified and he didn't know himself, those guys were able to put a chink in his armor, okay, pull the rug from up under him and having him question his manhood. Now, he was already insecure as hell, hiding behind arrogance and the fake bravado, okay, because he's insecure and has feelings of inadequacy. Let's be clear about that. However, so he felt like to compete against them, okay, they were all cheating, the trio, the trifecta, all three of them, right? But in order to one-up them, he said, you know what, I'm going to be sloppy with my shit. And I think a lot of this was not only subconsciously, but consciously. I'm going to have a full-blown girlfriend. And guess what? My wife is going to have to deal with and accept the shit. And that's how he was trying to have a pissing contest with them. Because he can't compete on them from a cerebral level, okay? Let's be clear. He's not the sharpest damn knife in the drawer, right? But in the Black community, it's really sad because a lot of times men measure their manhood based on antiquated ideas. Like when you think about the colonizers, how they used to stud out men and treat them like breeders in order to have more slaves to work on the plantations. They treated Black men like breeders, right? Just having them impregnate a bunch of women because it was all about having bodies to work the farm and the plantation. And so unfortunately, that type of mentality is embedded and deeply ingrained into the DNA, and it's interwoven in the fabric of Black men. In order for me to show my worth or have my worth, then I have to act like a stud. I have to have multiple notches in my belt and I have to sleep and impregnate a bunch of women, or at least sleep with a bunch of women. Okay, think about it, right? Because unfortunately, the way systemic and institutional racism works, strategically, Black people are positioned in the bottom of the totem pole. And oftentimes, brothers, they can't compete financially, economically with their white counterparts. So in order to make themselves feel good, they have to have a bunch of women, point blank, period. But that's a whole nother damn conversation. It gets deep. But anyway, I feel like Martell falls victim to that mentality, meaning in order to prove his manhood, he has to have a bunch of women, point blank, period. Okay, because he has no character, no integrity, and no substance. He seeks constant external validation, constantly. He said it out of his own mouth numerous times. Okay, he's like a leaky bucket. Nothing you do can ever fill the void that he has in himself, that he has within. He needs to sit on somebody's couch, get some intense therapy, period. But anyway, not to go too far down that rabbit hole. Yeah, but I will say he really needs to heal his childhood trauma, his father wounds, and his mother wounds, period, right? So again, I do feel like Marcel was right. Even though he has a lot of ish with him, basically he's saying in no uncertain terms there's levels to shit. And Martell is willing to go to the lowest of the lows. Ain't no respectful cheating with Martell's ass, right? If you're willing to let your damn side piece harass the then wife of your kids. So anyway, y'all tell me what y'all think about that conversation that Marceau had with Dustin Ross. I thought it was very telling. I wish he would have been that candid on the show, but who knows what gets cut from the editing room floor? Who knows, right? But anywho, this is Sensibility Speaks. Thanks for stopping by. Don't forget to like, share it, and subscribe. Bye-bye.